I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell.
This is the Fan Forum.
All right, we've opened up the phone lines here. We're back in the Fan Forum. This time we're bringing in the Jet fans to talk on the podcast this week. First up, the unofficial co-host of the podcast, first time out in the social distancing era, Will Schneiderhan. Will, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I hope everyone else is well.
Yeah, we're all staying 6 feet apart, more than 6 feet away from each other. I think we're all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, next up, somebody we heard from most recently doing Curb Your Enthusiasm coverage. You got our buddy Joe D to watch the show. Martino Puccio is here. Martino, welcome. How are you?
Good, yeah. I'm actually in a good mood because Joe D binged all 10 seasons of Curb. I want to give credit to ourselves, by the way.
Yes. Yeah, I think we accepted him in that idea to him to actually watch Curbed.
I got him to start watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so that's also good.
All right. So while Martino's passing on TV tips, I'll bring in the third member of the Fan Forum. We haven't heard from him in a little bit since he did the NFL picks back in Week 11. The great Rocky DiPaola is on the line with us, too. Rocky, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mike. I'm thankful that Breaking Bad and classic World Series games are getting me through this quarantine period.
Yeah, well,
okay, Rock.
Everybody's got their own thing. Breaking Bad works for Rock, so let's get into why we're here. We're talking a little New York Jet football, and like I did last week, the Giant Fan Forum, I'll start the Jet one this way. I'll go to each of you for your opinion on this. I'll start with you, Mr. Martino. Are the Jets going in the right direction or the wrong direction?
I kind of always have this flow chart in my head that if the Jets make a good move, the next part of the flow chart is who is your head coach, and then below that, if it's Adam Gase, then the answer is the wrong direction. And then if it's not Adam Gase, then you might be in the right direction. But with the Jets, they do have Adam Gase. So I don't think to an extent they're in the right direction because if they even do have a good season, then Adam Gase comes back. And the whole goal is to win a Super Bowl, and you just don't see the Jets winning one with Adam Gase. That's my whole issue. And that's kind of the right direction should always be moving towards winning a Super Bowl. And when you have him, you're not going to win one, so you're not going in the right direction, in my opinion.
All right, Will, how about you? Right direction, wrong direction?
Yeah, I kind of just err what Martino just said. As long as he's here, you're probably not going to win. You're not. There's no long-term winning with Adam Gase, at least as far as we've seen. So I just kind of think he's not going to be around when this team really really turns it around. I can't imagine that Douglas even keeps around past this year because there's no way they're winning 10 or 12 football games this season. But I do think on paper, I like the fact that you're bringing guys in that you don't have to pay long term. There's no clog in the salary cap. So, I mean, from that aspect, when you're bringing talent into the room, you're not paying too much for, and you're not handcuffing yourself. I think from a roster standpoint, they're definitely going in the right direction.
All right, Rock, right direction, wrong direction.
I'm going to piggyback off what Will said. I'm going to say I like the moves that Douglas has made. So, on paper, the team kind of looks like they're heading into the right direction. But from a coaching aspect, I feel like they're going in the wrong direction because, Mike, I mentioned this to you on your show back in November. I said coaching's all about making the most of what you had. And look what John Gruden did. Look what Mike Tomlin did. And look what Frank Reich did. All those guys had least amount of talent to work with, but yet they were able to have some success. Gase, on the other hand, he quits on his team. He doesn't put the Jets in, fortuitous or good situations. I mean, look what happened with Luke Falk. That was an utter disaster. And then he doesn't utilize Le'Veon Bell. You have a top 5 running back in your backfield, and you don't know how to utilize them? Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm kind of in the middle here because, in theory, I like what they're doing, but, I talked to Brian Costello earlier in the podcast. They said, yeah, they've added bodies. They've filled the middle class out, but none of these guys really knock your socks off. The offensive line particularly, it's better. Don't know how much better it's going to be, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to – my whole thing with the offensive line is, it has to be better. I mean, it was so terrible. You know what I mean? I would hope that literally anybody else other than what they had is better. That offensive line was just putrid. I feel like when I'm saying it's going in the right direction, it's literally like the bar was so low, like there was really only one way but up. It was so low, so bad.
Once again, feeding off like what Will said, I mean, the offensive line was just horrendous, absolutely dreadful. And Darnold didn't always have a clean pocket majority of the time. But I think with the moves that Douglas made, it's going in the right direction. And fingers crossed that it just pans out well and it doesn't turn out to be like the Giants did a few years ago.
Yeah, let's talk about Joe Douglas for a minute because, I mean, like, he's been taking the opposite approach what Mike Maccagnan did. Maccagnan was, like, throwing the big bucks around. We saw last year threw $70 million guaranteed at Le'Veon Bell and C.J. Mosley, and that got them a whole lot of nothing pretty much. This year, he basically has not given out a ton of guaranteed money. He signed a bunch of guys to one-year deals. Just fortified the depth. I'll go to you, Rocky. How do you feel about the Joe Douglas first full offseason of his own accord there?
I think if I had to give him a grade, I'd give him a B because, like you mentioned, he's bringing guys like a one-year contract, so it's pretty much low risk, high reward kind of thing. And I also liked how he brought back Jordan Jenkins and Brian Poole because I felt like those were two guys that they had to bring back. And even though I'm a bit disappointed, I will admit I'm a little disappointed that he wasn't able to bring back Robbie Anderson because seeing what he got with the Carolina Panthers, I felt like there was a strong possibility that they were able to re-sign him to a long-term deal. But other than that, I would say I'd give Douglas a B this offseason.
I think he's a solid. I want to say, I'd say B minus because, like, again, he's putting the depth in the roster, which you kind of needed. But to me, at the same time, it's like, we haven't accomplished a ton. There are still glaring holes on this roster. I mean, I think part is because Mike Maccagnan was such a miserable failure as a general manager that this team had so much work to do. But this team still needs corners. They still have not had an edge rusher. Darnold has no weapons, and they need a left tackle. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. There's still lots of problems with this team.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like, yeah. I mean, like C plus B minus. Like, is there really a difference in that? So I'm kind of in that range. Just because I just think of the fact that, and I wrote about it in one of my articles. Like Maccagnan just always. He doesn't have any ability to kind of go on this, like, that secondary wave, kind of like that bargain market. It was always, oh, well, I didn't draft well, so I have to throw a ton of money at, C.J. Mosley, at Le'Veon Bell, you name it, Tremaine Johnson. And it was just like a constant carousel of just nothing working because he was so bad at doing both. I just like that Douglas is kind of like what Rock said, like low risk, high reward. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to get caught up with the idea that, like, oh, here comes Fant. And Fant's, like, people think he's this project left tackle that could be good in the NFL. That's really good that Douglas did that. Like, I got to see the guy play, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to chime in, I think the Jets, this year's draft and next year's draft class, it's going to pay huge dividends for the Jets, and it has to pay dividends.
Yeah.
I'll throw that in there.
If he drafts, like, literally 3 people that play in the NFL for 2 years, then he's doing a better job than Maccagnan.
Especially 3 people outside the first round, because he had a 50% hit rate on first rounders, but like the rest of the picks were just awful.
Oh, terrible.
I mean, it was just Adams, and then who was the other pick that he did well with?
Well, I'm counting Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So then Leo swinging a miss.
Darren Lee.
Darren Lee. Yeah, terrible.
Hackenberg with the second round pick.
Yeah,
but
he had Marcus May in the second round. That was really the only pick that you could say. And he's a starter. He's an NFL starter. That was at least what you would want. And in certain weeks, he played up to like a Pro Bowl level too. So my whole thing was with Douglas and just the offseason. Offseason is like a little bit different because he also needs. He hasn't even been here for a full year. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like he came in before or like after the Super Bowl last year. It's like in the middle of the summer that they thought he could have gone to the Texans, and thank God we're not really in that situation there. But again, I mean, he did everything with what he could. I mean, it's really difficult to bring in the offensive lineman that he had to bring in. He got the most out of the trade deadline. The trade deadline in the NFL is not anything close to what the NBA is like or what Major League Baseball is.
Yeah, nothing.
Where you could really find some value there. It's really just getting rid of a guy. And it's just not a lot of teams know that they're in the Super Bowl hunt at that point for the NFL trade deadline. You know, like NBA teams, MLB teams, they have a better sense that their team is able to compete at that point, you know, because you're in mid-July, at the end of July. And then you're at, you know, like in the middle of February, whenever the NBA would have it. It's just really difficult. And again, the NFL is all about the draft. It doesn't matter. Like, we've seen the Jets win a ton of off seasons all the time, and they play absolutely terrible. We've seen John Idzik not only strike out in the draft, strike out in free agency. He's just keeping his options open because they're all short-term deals. We talk about it all the time, just the three of us, and then whatever. Like, I talk to Rocky. Like, they're good moves, you know. Like, there's not a lot of risk involved in this. Like, the risk involved, like, you could tell McCagnon got so desperate last offseason because you remember when, I believe the story was, they tried getting Dante Hightower in the facility, and they tried wooing him with donuts. And, like, the only thing that you could sell on a player that plays for the rival greatest dynasty to ever play the sport is, you know, Krispy Kremes, then you have a bigger issue lying down the road. And now he overpaid for Mosley to an extent. You don't see that, but look, options are open, and who knows? Maybe there's a trade back in the draft. For now, it's I guess I'd go with a B. It's just there's not much to go off of in free agency, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely true. Yeah.
And then on top of, one more thing. If you're not able to have guys to come and visit your facility, not able to interview them, you're a little bit more hesitant in offering certain money or a longer term deal. You're not even able to sell them on the culture fix that Joe Douglas talks about. So I think that's also difficult. So yeah, B. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think in terms of this, I think the thing I like about him more than like some of the past GMs is like, especially McCagnon. Like McCagnon, like did not have that walkaway number. He would bid against himself to make sure he got the guy he wanted, and then the Jets end up in cap hell. And now Douglas at least has shown like I have a number. I'm not paying more than a number, and I'm not going to bury my team in bad contracts because I have to have certain guys. Like there was a walkaway price for guys like Jack Conklin. There was walkaway prices for like people like that, and we may disagree about what the number could have been for somebody like Robbie Anderson, but I've admire the fact that he has a vision and like he's not willing to overpay for guys. Just what gets the Jets in so much like of these boom or bust cycles. Like, oh, like we're good for 2 years, we don't make the playoffs, and then we're rebuilding for 5 because we screwed the cap up so badly.
I mean, going back to McCagnon's first year as the GM, look what he did. He brought back Cromartie, he brought back
terrible.
Davis, and he just pretty much gave him a boatload of money. But I give him credit for the Marshall trade because that was a steal, at least for the beginning.
Yeah, Marshall was a steal at the beginning of the deal, but like that whole locker room imploded in 2016. But without talking about McCagnon, I think this offseason, I think there's a couple interesting things I want to discuss here, which is I think the Robbie Anderson move. I'll go to you, Will. Like, did you have a problem with letting him go at the price he was offered there for the Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I was never. So, like, yeah, for the price, let me just preface for the price. I don't know why the heck you didn't bring him back. Like, we had discussed it. Like, that was the price. Like, you're framing it as that deal, right? Like, oh, if it's this deal, bring him back. And, I mean, I don't know why you didn't bring him back for that price. I wouldn't have gone. I mean, what he was projected to get at the beginning of the season, like, absolutely. Off-season, like, no way. I didn't want to pay him that. Just because, like, my opinion is, like, I don't think he's like that you're going to shell out that much money for a guy like him. But what he ended up settling on, yeah, I mean, well, come on. Like, you know, for a guy who's damn near at least a 1,000-yard receiver, big play, you know, he played well with Sam. I would have brought him back for that price. I actually am very surprised, as I know Martino and Mike, you are, like, that they let him walk for that.
You know, I'll be honest with you guys. I felt like as the longer it went on that he was a free agent, I felt like the chances of the Jets re-signing him increased and enhanced. But then as soon as I saw that he got 2 years and $20 million with the Panthers, I was kind of scratching my head saying, really, you couldn't re-sign him to something similar or maybe even give him an extra year?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, that wouldn't like follow his whole thing that he was doing.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And also, again, tons and tons, pretty much everyone. The consensus is one of the best wide receiver drafts in years.
Yep.
The thought process is he's thinking a couple steps ahead. Why would you want to pay someone, not because Robbie's a really good receiver and he had a great relationship with Sam, but when you know you're able to get guys at a fraction of the cost and you have so many holes on your team, you'd rather draft a guy in the second or third round when you rob the Giants in, like, you know, the Leonard Williams trade. Like, use it to go take a receiver there. like Robbie was an undrafted free agent. You would hope that the offensive genius that is Adam Gase can just develop a guy in the third round, right? So to me, I understood the move, and if he doesn't want to budge on his price, it might sound negligent, but I got to give him, the benefit of the doubt here. If he didn't want to move on what he had in mind, then I have to trust him for now until I can't trust him.
Plus, if you guys noticed, when the Jets were relevant, like years they made the postseason, they always had solid wide receivers, whether it was Keyshawn Johnson and Wayne Corbett, or Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery, or even Santonio Holmes and Braylon Edwards. The Jets had great wide receivers, and when the Jets were relevant, they had great wide receivers. And I think Douglas needs to adjust the wide receiver in the draft immediately.
Well, I think that goes without saying. This is a very deep receiver class, and I mean, like, I know there's arguments to be made for taking a guy like Jerry Jeudy in the first round, especially if all 4 tackles are gone, but, like, I think the biggest priority right now is, considering how deep the receiver group is, left tackle, get one there, second round, get a receiver, get another one later in the draft, just throw more darts at those positions, and, like, give Sam help, because, like, if they pick a defensive tackle or something in the first round again, I will literally lose my mind.
All faith in Douglas goes out the window if they draft another freaking interior defensive lineman. I'll lose it. Yeah,
Derek Brown.
No, it's not gonna happen.
Just say, is Rex back?
Yeah, because I'll give Douglas that. He was not here for that pick. That was McCagnon's last first round pick, the great Quinnen Williams, who is
the most obvious trade back situation of all time.
Yeah, he didn't do that. Didn't take Josh Allen, who could have given them the edge rush they've been looking for since John Abraham got traded away about 15 years ago. They couldn't do that, but nope. They take another guy who is right now is still waiting to have his gun trial held because of the coronavirus close all the courts.
Yeah, I mean, look, and then even it hurts more too when a guy like Jacob Polite is just one of the worst.
Oh, dude!
Remember, like you would have, like I thought. I'll be honest, I'm completely wrong on that guy. I thought he had a chance to like actually, provide something in the rotation and just like get a couple of sacks here and there. If he had 5, it's a great year. But I mean, dude couldn't even last 5 weeks on the team.
Wasn't he one of the first Douglas cuts?
He was one of the first cuts. Then he went to Seattle. And Seattle.
He was on the practice squad. Yeah,
out of the league. I don't even.
Worst pick, him or Hackenberg?
Hackenberg.
Yeah,
Hackenberg.
Even though Hackenberg made the roster.
Watch the practice. He was so bad. Can you realize that? Like, you have no pressure in practice. And he was hitting reporters on the sidelines with the ball. Like, you know how bad you have to suck to do that?
How about the fact that we never saw him play? Isn't it Bryce Petty getting the reps before him?
Yep.
McCagnon panicked because he could have waited to the 5th round and still got him. That's how bad he was.
Sign him undrafted.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah, I think what happened with him, I think he just fell in love with the tape and just like the freshman tape, and then like once they got in the building, it's like, oh my god, this kid can't play. It's kind of like what happened, I think, when they traded for Tebow back in 2012, where they must have just gotten like, when they were just so enamored with the
circus that was
with the Bronco thing. Once they got him in practice, they saw like, oh my god, he's horrendous. We can't use him on offense, and they started to come up with ridiculous ways to get him in special teams packages.
Yeah, imagine rooting for a team that likes Tim Tebow.
Yeah. Let's get back on track here for a second. We'll get off the Hackenberg Tebow train here. Let's go to Martino's favorite person in the world, Adam Gase. Like, what has to happen here for him to actually be a successful coach in this town?
I got an idea.
Go.
Get his head out of his ass. I mean, the one major thing I love about Sam Darnold was that the story, he went into his office and told him, basically in the nicest way possible in Cali surfer voice, yeah, I don't think what we're doing's working right now. We got to change it up a little bit. And he can't be on the sideline admitting that he defers the challenge flag to his offensive coordinators because he's too busy trying to figure out a game plan when his offense for the 3rd straight year is ranked bottom 3 in the NFL. There is pictures of him on the Microsoft Pro Edge or whatever the hell you want to call that thing on the sideline, sitting by himself, no players around him, no coaches around him, no quarterback, there is nothing worse than a human being that thinks they're a lot smarter than they are. And you know the history of Adam Gase. He was literally a fly on the wall in the Michigan State coaching staff back when Nick Saban was coaching there. And he hung around. He had no football acumen whatsoever. He never played at a higher level. He never really was like doing a great job that you're like, okay, that's solely Adam Gase doing that. It was just he was on staff with Saban. He was on the as the offensive coordinator when Peyton Manning was setting records. Like there was never a true moment that you were like, okay, Adam Gase is the guy there. That like he's the mastermind behind all of this. And you know what? That relationship with Joe Douglas is highly overrated just because they were in Chicago at the same time. It doesn't mean that he likes him enough to keep him here because Adam Gase has to get him out of his own way. And one of the main things that people always talk about, okay, a guy got fired from his first job. You sometimes second time around, you know, like Bill Belichick is like the gold standard of it, that he figured things out and he changed it. Thing is with Bill Belichick, he had a few off seasons, went back as a coordinator before he got another head coaching gig. Adam Gase got tossed back into the same division and went into another inept franchise where the guy was playing GM for a little bit. I mean, he did well with the Darren Lee trade. Give him credit for that. But, I mean, look, he needs to get out of his own way and realize that he isn't the genius that he thinks he is.
Yeah.
So my take on it, I think he just needs, if he wants to be successful, and I preach this so many times, he's got to utilize Le'Veon Bell. Like, as an NFL coach, how the hell do you not know how to use Le'Veon Bell? This guy was pretty much, you know, the most dominant offensive player in the last few years, aside from the quarterback position. He can catch passes at the wide receiver slot. He can run the ball. He can do it all. And you don't know how to use him?
Yeah, it's like he did it to cut off his own nose to spite his face because of the comments he made when he was like, there was a rumor that he didn't want Le'Veon Bell or he wouldn't pay a running back that money. And then he kind of like stuck to his guns and just didn't use them.
There were some weeks where it looked like he was innovative, like he's putting these packages together with like
the first driver's game.
Yeah, well, all the scripted plays, or like you know when you'd have who's the little slot receiver, Barrios, like rip off that 60-yarder and stuff like that, like
against the Raiders.
Yeah, there's a few packages where you're like, wow, it's like I mean the way he used Jamison Crowder, but then it's just like, yeah, you're right, the complete package. Like 1-2 drives later, it is just stall out city. There's nothing going right. You haven't seen Le'Veon Bell in 10 plays, and I just don't know what. It's almost like he just like Martino's saying, like he just like wants to be like, oh look, I can do it. Look, I just did it for 2 drives, and he just does not care after. There's no change in the game plan. It's just like, dude, are you watching the game?
The thing that bugged me with him last year specifically was like I'll point specifically to Ty Montgomery's usage because in the preseason, like he was in every package, he was being used all over the place, and like he was making plays. And then the regular season, they just forgot he existed. He never touched the football. I'm like, what did you bring me here for to do that?
Yeah, that was what exactly. Like another guy, like dude, you had. I mean, listen, like you don't think of Ty Montgomery as a weapon per se, but in the right system and the right packages, yeah, that dude should have been on the field a lot more.
Ryan Griffin was looking like a Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And what about Bilal Powell? I mean, yeah, granted, he's like a third-string running back, but still, this guy, for a good number of years, he's been a solid player for the Jets. And believe it or not, he's actually the longest 10-year Jet.
Yeah, let's go away from Gase. I think we all are kind of on the downslope on him. Let's go to Sam Darnold then. Entering year number 3, year 2 was kind of a very mixed year because of the mono and the ghost game, and like he played well at times on the stretch. He also still had a lot of those mind-boggling turnovers where you're like watching this game, you're like, what the hell is he seeing here? I don't know what decision he's making right here. So, like, what is the most important thing we need to get out of Sam Darnold in year 3? Rocky, you first.
Other than not seeing any ghosts on the field, I think he just needs to read defenses better. He has to have more of a persistent presence. Now, I know that's more due in part to the O-line, though, but, you know, in the NFL, as a quarterback, you're going to be under duress sometimes. You just got to learn to know where to go with the football, minimize the turnovers, and just give your team and your offense a better chance to win and put them in better positions.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, he's never been healthy. You know? When has Sam Darnold been, like, literally, out of the 26 games he's played in his career, you could say he's been fully healthy for maybe half of them. like we haven't even seen him yet. You know what I mean? Like we've seen the flashes, we've seen the unscripted plays, we've seen what he can do, and like Rocky said, just limit those turnovers, limit those forced passes. But like I don't know why you can't. I don't even know. Like the question to me is like I'm not even worried about Sam Darnold. I'm really not. Even when he looked terrible against New England, I was literally there. Like I don't know. Let me see the guy healthy. Let me see the guy with the offensive line and more weapons than two receive. Like I don't know. I'm not really worried about the guy one bit. Out of all the things you got to worry about this offseason, I'm not worried about the quarterback.
Yeah. So I'm probably the biggest Darnold guy I know. I think I always find a way to defend this guy. It's different with Mark Sanchez coming out. I liked him, but there wasn't any moments that I saw. That touchdown pass to Crowder in the Ravens game. Even the one Crowder dropped. You see that play happen, and you're like, "Holy crap! That's the guy." That they never had somebody like that. Maybe the few games that Brett Favre played in until he tore his tricep muscles. Fact is, guy has the worst offensive line in the NFL. He has a coach that doesn't allow him to play to his strengths. Everyone knows Darnold is a magician the second he's able to roll out of the pocket and create plays with his legs, right? That Robbie Anderson pass against the Oakland Raiders. It was kind of dumb. He should have ran because he had all that space in front of him. But that throw he made at the angle, and even the first time he ever played the Dolphins, he's throwing 300 yards. It's the most yards, first player at his age to throw for 300 yards. He had an 82% completion percentage in 2019 when he had a clean pocket. That's 6 out of 32 qualified quarterbacks. But the funniest part about all of that was he had the least amount of clean pockets in the NFL. He always had the worst protection. Just protect the guy. It's not difficult. We saw what he could do. He could play with anybody. Right there in the Dallas game was all I needed to know. That's the perfect example. That's a game no one had the Jets winning except Manish Mehta because he just wanted clicks for his article. That was clearly it. And the fact that kid went up there and played like that, the way he handles everything is just so sound. Again, no matter who you put in that Jets team last year or the year before is going to succeed. You could put in Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning. They're not going to play well, and they're not going to win anything. So it was very unfair, in my opinion, to judge him off of his first 2 seasons. So I'm very high on him going in if Gase allows him to play to his strengths.
Yeah, I think the key here is the line. And something Brian Costello brought up earlier is that their team is going to be very badly hurt by the lack of off-season programs because of the whole coronavirus thing, because they're going to basically going for the whole quantity over quality approach. They're going to go to camp and have the 5 guys sort themselves out in camp. And the longer it takes them to identify those 5 guys and who the starting 5 are, they're not going to be able to build chemistry. That's going to lead to more line problems early in the season, and that's going to impact Darnold's development again, which is another issue you have to worry about, especially considering you might have a rookie left tackle.
I agree. That's kind of like what happened when they did in the offseason when they tried to get Khalil in there. Fit in all these guys.
None of them played together.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They're not even playing together in the games. They're not even practicing together. So, how could you even expect that? But the silver lining in that, Mike, is that no other team really, you could even point to the Giants as well. They're going to have those issues. So at least the other 32 teams have those issues, and it's not just the Jets, which is very rare.
Yeah, this is sort of a situation where the continuity is going to be key for these teams that do well. I'd be hard pressed to find many teams with new coaches who are going to do very well this year because they're not going to get in the building, learn the schemes, and do all that OTA work, the extra work they get. It's something where the Jets may have a very, very slight advantage over teams like the Giants who are installing entire new programs where their program may not be great, but at least they've been in it for a full year.
Again, like you already said, the guy is probably going to be slighted again this year with all that. So I don't know. At least he's only 23. You get a better offensive line, more weapons. It's just simple. I mean, it's really simple. I really have no other input on the matter. Like Martino said, like Mike said, get the guy, make him play upright more, not running for his life every snap, and we'll see. See how good he is. It's kind of like anything in the NFL for any quarterback. Like Martino said, put Deshaun Watson under center. You saw him get, murdered for Houston 2 seasons ago. It's the way of life in the NFL, man.
I can maybe Russell Wilson's the only quarterback who can play with a bad O-line and still play pretty well. Other than that,
I meant like a rookie Russell Wilson would not have succeeded like that.
Yeah,
It's a little different with the prime. I get what you're saying, but my point was like rookie Peyton Manning was leading the league in interceptions. Like, you think you put him on this Jets offensive line and his best receiver is like Jamison Crowder on his good day? Like,
No, it's absolutely. It's simple. It's real simple.
And Crowder's like a second string wide receiver on a good team.
Yeah, let's go to the defensive side for a little bit because they're the more impressive unit because of our hero and savior Greg Williams, who coached up a unit that had like so many injuries last year and so many no names aside from Jamal Adams and made a ton of plays. I feel like this unit is going to be vastly improved with C.J. Mosley back healthy for a full year because I mean, like, we saw the impact he was having that one game against Buffalo before he got hurt, and like he was all over the field, he's making plays. Like, I'm very excited to see him play a full year with the Jets.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you alluded to it before where, McCagnon probably paid too much for him because he had the prime away from Baltimore. C.J. Mosley is like one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. It's not even a question. And you saw it in that Buffalo game. I mean, they were winning that football game until he left, And I think he's an absolute stud. He's someone who he's been around. He knows what offenses are trying to do. He's a super smart linebacker. I mean, and the guy can do it all. You can send him in on the skies blitzes, and he's good enough in coverage where he does it all, man. I mean, compared to what they were working with, and Greg Williams had the Jets winning football games with last year, you had C.J. Mosley. You're doing a lot for that defense, especially against the run. I mean, it's just another really simple, outcome. When you put an all-pro, Pro Bowl middle linebacker in the middle of your defense, you're going to be so much better.
And plus, you're going to get Avery Williamson back, who, before he got hurt last year, he was probably the Jets' best defensive player the year before.
Nah, that was Jamal. But I was going to make that point too, though, Rocky. They didn't have two starting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they had no cornerbacks. Their number 3 overall pick, who's supposed to be supposed future Hall of Fame defensive tackle, was absolutely useless. You couple that, like, you add those 3 guys, you get Desir in there. You hope, like, I assume they're going to take a cornerback with one of their first 4 picks. To be honest with you, if it doesn't go to offensive linemen and just wide receivers, I think cornerback is a position to watch. Like, these guys are getting older and they're better too. Like a year older for Jamal Adams. Like, this guy has the potential to win Defensive Player of the Year this year if all breaks right. This was like, weren't they a borderline top 10 defense already without all of those things? Like,
the run defense was like top 5 or something there.
Yeah, I think it was top 3 at one point.
Yeah,
like,
without a pass rush. That's exactly. Without a pass rush and an edge rusher and cornerback. Greg Williams still would have football games.
And then, like, what if Quentin Williams unlocks his potential? What if you get C.J. Mosley and Avery Williamson for a full year? What if you get, like, solid cornerbacks? Then all of a sudden you can look at, like, a top 8 defense at that point. And that's massive because then it takes a ton of pressure off of the offense, too.
Yeah, I actually said it in one of my articles that's going to come out for Fansite, and I said, like, one of the predictions is you're going to be looking at, like, one of those borderline elite, if not an elite level defense. I know they don't have the edge rusher. That's why I said borderline. But, I think they're going to be amazing. I mean, Jordan Jenkins is back, too. Like, that defense is probably one of the super talented, not super, but at least really talented in the NFL, man. With Greg Williams, too, man.
You have depth at the linebacker position because you're going to have Mosley and Williamson back. And then, not to mention, you have Jordan Jenkins and then Neville Hewitt, who was playing so many games for the Jets down the stretch. He played a big role for them in their defense. He's back again. So they have depth at the linebacker position. So they should be set there.
Indeed. Let's go to the draft for a little bit because they're in an interesting spot. They're taking number 11. They have basically all their picks up for the last rounder. They have 2 3s thanks to that great Leonard Williams trade that Dave Gettleman decided he had to make. So let's go around the horn here. Like, give me an ideal world for your draft. I'll start with you on this one, Will.
I like waver between, what we talked about in that group chat, where, like, we either go tackle first in that first round or wide receiver. To me, I don't see, like, it's win-win for me. I'm not, you're making the team better. You're helping Sam out. I know the tackle position is I mean, I don't even know. Like, what? I don't even know if you can say one's more crucial than the other. Like, if you get a stud wide receiver busting over the top of the offense and breaking it open all game for Sam, that's huge too. But I get the fact you need to tackle to keep everything, in check. But I think either way, you're interchanging that offensive tackle wide receiver in the first or second. Like Martino said before, Nab maybe a corner later on, 3-4, maybe you're looking at a corner receiver again, keep building that offensive line. But I think you're really going to see a lot of attention to that offensive line, especially based upon the deals that were made this offseason. And they're absolutely going to probably get a receiver, I would say, in those first 3 rounds.
I think, at least with the first round pick, I think they should go wide receiver because I'm not saying it's all set in stone at the offensive line position because I think they're still going to draft linemen as the draft progresses. But I think at least for the first round pick, they should go wide receiver. And a guy that catches my eye is Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. The guy he's compared to OBJ, and they said he's not like a knucklehead. He's a student of the game, phenomenal work ethic. And like I mentioned earlier in this segment, the Jets, when they made the playoffs or when they showed some relevancy, they had solid wide receivers. And if you have Jeudy with Crowder, and then, maybe the Jets can make some noise at the wide receiver position. And plus, this isn't guys like Clyde Gates or Chaz Schilling or another name. What's that?
Vincent Smith.
Yeah. David Nelson. Yeah, there's another one.
Oh, jeez, yeah. So there's so many ways this could go because I always say how unpredictable the draft is. I think teams are just going to bite up on Tua, and I really do think a tackle is going to fall there, and I think priority should be tackle. Now, I think there's a very likely scenario there's no tackle there. I said Jerry Jeudy is the player I've always wanted. I said I wanted Jerry Jeudy the second we found out Sam Darnold had mono. My friends all thought I was crazy because I said, I already gave up on the season. If you know your teams well enough and if you know the Jets, season was over the second that happened. So, Jerry Jeudy at 11 is just the biggest home run and best pick. And I don't think I've wanted a player on the Jets this bad since maybe Reggie Bush. 14 years ago at this point?
A long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. Especially as offensive players go. You need it. Without a doubt, they're taking an offensive lineman or wide receiver with the first 2 picks. Whether the order is reversed or whether it's tackle first or wide receiver second, it's gonna be that because those are the 2 most glaring needs and they're the most important things that you need for your quarterback. So if there's no tackle there, go get Jerry. If not, then go get your tackle and help build around things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think my plan is very similar to everybody else's here. It's I think you need to have the receiver tackle some order, whatever order you want to do with the first 2 picks. I think you have to walk out of this draft with 2 receivers, 2 linemen, and a corner at minimum. I think the rest of them is really up to you, but I think you need those 5 things out of this draft.
I wouldn't 100% be opposed to trading back if all the tackles and Jerry Jeudy were gone. I think it's a very feasible thing. What if a team wants to say Jerry Jeudy goes early? We saw something with Corey Davis and John Ross go really early in that one draft. Teams are going to get panicky then because Henry Ruggs and CeeDee Lamb are guys that people have their eye on, right? So they would panic and say, oh my God, what happens if Ruggs isn't there following up to us in the mid-teens, a team like the Broncos? What if the Broncos want to move up a few spots? I'd trade back 100% and gain more draft capital because the more picks you have means the more help or potential help you're going to get for Sam Darnold. And I wouldn't completely rule that out. I think that's a third option down the road in case that would happen.
Yeah, there always seems to be some negative, connotation to trading back. I don't, especially with the Giants. I don't understand what that.
To do it all the
No,
time.
there is no negative. I don't understand that at all. What the issue with it is. I mean, especially you already mentioned it earlier last year. That screamed the trade back. What is the issue with trading back? Like you said, compile the picks. Trust the fact that you have done your scouting and you evaluated the correct players.
Only the Bengals would be stupid to trade back. Everyone else,
exactly. No, exactly. The hands down. I've never understood what the issue with trading. Why people view it the way so negatively.
Yeah, I trust him to do his job right. He's got a board. He's got a better spouting background than McCagnon did. So that's a big plus. But let's wrap it up with this. We'll go around the horn one last time here. So let's assume for a second here that they end up with a tackle, a couple receivers in the draft. This is pretty much the team we're going into camp with. Assuming, and who knows with sports these days, assuming we get a full 16-game NFL season, how many games are the Jets winning? I will leave it up to you guys to decide who goes first.
I just wrote about this for Fansided, where I kind of the schedule breakdown. So it's a lot like last year, where their schedule's a little bit tougher, but they won 7 games last year, and you lose week 1 against Buffalo, where you should have won, and then you go to Miami. I know you can't say should have won in any professional sport, but you get what I'm saying. And then they dropped the one to Miami down to Miami. So you could have went 9-7, at least 8-8. I think they're probably at most an 8-8 football team. I projected them to go at least 500, but I'm not. 8-8 is your ceiling. I think maybe 6-10, 7-9 again.
I'm going to say 6-10, maybe 7-9, because as great as this defense is and how they performed last year, look at the quarterbacks and the teams they're going to have to go up against. They're going to have to play Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he had a terrible Super Bowl, Kyler Murray, and then Patrick Mahomes, the Super Bowl MVP. It's going to be tough for them. And then
all of them are on the road, aren't they? I didn't even factor them in to begin with to do much on the road.
They traveled
besides San Francisco at home.
They traveled the least amount of distance last season too. They didn't play any West Coast time zone games, which is massive.
They didn't lead the Eastern time zone last year. They played all the Eastern time zone games.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's not going to happen again. You're not going to be playing. They lost to the Bungles, for God's sake. The only win that they had, where they were giving up 10 sets. To me, man, I would not be shocked if they won 5 games. It just really, I don't trust the coaching staff. I think the division to an extent is better. I think it's the Bills division. We don't know what the Pats are going to do at quarterback yet, but I still think they're going to be at least winning 7 to 9 games without, a star quarterback. The Dolphins, I think, have the potential to be really good, a sneaky dark horse team, because say they get to it, the Dolphins have a ton of picks. If they Devontae Parker was the resurgence there. They got a culture going on. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets win 5 games and finish 4th in the division. This is just it's a very difficult schedule. They're just not good. Adam Gase is just an atrocity. My best case scenario is they somehow win 7 games, and it has to do with Greg Williams taking over at one point in the year. And
just to throw one more thing in, they play the Chiefs at Arrowhead, so that may be an ugly game.
Well, like I said, on the road, I didn't even factor that. I think I had them winning a game or 2 on the road. They're not all those games. Will forget it. There's no shot. But I think you might be able to. But like Martino said, there's a lot of leeway where you could, like you said, if they won 5, I wouldn't be surprised. If they somehow scratch 7 or 8, I also wouldn't be surprised, because at one point I'm just gonna err on the side of belief that your defensive coordinator can do what he does, and at one point, just hoping that Sam Darnold can at least just break out of his shell on his own and win despite his head coach.
Wait, as a Jet fan, are you guys hoping? Because you want your team to win, but are you guys hoping that this could be 2013, where the Jets, they didn't have all these playmakers, they were a bad team on paper, but for some strange reason they finished 8-8, and they brought back Rex Ryan for another year? And of course, we know what happened a year after. But do you think we could see something like that, or not in the cards?
I think they would have to, if everything breaks right, there would be a dark horse for that last new playoff spot.
Yeah,
my thing is when you have the quarterback, you have a chance. But again, they need everything else around it. But we'll see. It's a lot of this could be completely different post draft.
Yeah, I think my theory has been that they're going to be a 6-win team until proven otherwise. Because again, this team is just not very good. They have so many years of bad drafting to overcome. Joe Douglas is starting to put depth on the team. They don't really have enough star power aside from Jamal Adams and Mosley and Bell, if he's right. There's not a lot there, and the offensive line is going to be rough at the beginning of the year when they have no real time to work together and sorting out the best 5. I can see this being another kind of similar to the 2019 season where they start off very badly and they pick up a little bit towards the end of the year. And is it enough to save Gase's job? I don't know. I just don't think this team is very good.
No.
I mean,
these road games are absurd, though. Like, not only like playing at
they might win
New
two.
England,
They might win 2 games on the road.
like they play at Buffalo, at New England. That's a given. All the division games are disasters. Then you have to go at LA both times, both teams, at Kansas City, at Indy, and at Seattle. Like what? Like that's you're right. That's one win at best.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I mean, just based on what they've done before, like at least those LA games, like I'm assuming you're just going to keep them out there. But I don't like. Then you have a shot maybe at least one of those teams. But Jesus, no way! If you have to go make 2 trips to LA, forget it. You know what I mean? Because I know like Buffalo stayed or they didn't stay in New York, but when they played the Giants and Jets, it was back to back. And granted, that's only New York.
Yeah, well, that'll be fun to keep track of the Jets this year. Guys, thanks again for hopping on this Jet fan forum. Really appreciate it. Everybody a chance to plug our social media is Rock, because you have not been on here in the longest time frame. How about you go first?
Social media, I am, you can follow me at Twitter at @TheRock_954 or at Instagram, _Rock1995.
All right, Martina, how about you?
You just follow me on Twitter at Martino Puccio.
And Will, last but not least.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter as well at Will Schneiderhan.
All right, thanks, guys, a lot. I really appreciate it. Up next, we'll go to wrap out the show, do some pop culture, talk a little Westworld and more with the great John Stanko right after this.